Shalom, welcome to Tactically Torah. I am Keith Hayes. Today is day 87 of Read the Bible in a Year, and we are in 1 Samuel, reading through chapters 11 through 14. 11, 12, 13, and 14. If you're reading along in the scriptures, we're on page 290. Let's go ahead and get into it. So chapter 11. And the Nahash, the Ammonite, and Nahash the Ammonite came up and camped against Yabesh Gilead. And all the men of Yabesh said to Nahash, "Make a covenant with us, and we shall serve you." Then Nahash the Ammonite answered them, "For this I make a covenant with you, that I dig out all your right eyes, and I shall bring reproach on all Israel." And the leaders of Yabesh said to him, "Leave us alone for 7 days, so that we send messengers to all the borders of Israel. And then, if there is no one to save us, we shall come out to you." And the messengers came to Geba of Shaul, and spoke the words of the hearing of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And look, Saul was coming behind the herd from the field, and Saul said, "Why are the people weeping?" And they related to him the words of the men of Yabesh, and the spirit of Elohim came upon Saul mightily as he heard these words, and his displeasure burned greatly. And he took a yoke of cattle and cut them into pieces, and sent them throughout all the borders of Israel by the hands of the messengers, saying, "Whoever does not go out with Saul and Samuel to battle, let this be done to his cattle." And the fear of Yahweh fell on the people, and they came out as one man. And he mustered them in Bezek. And the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said to the messengers who came, saying, "Say this to the men of Yabesh Gilead, tomorrow by the time the sun is hot you shall have help." Then the messengers came and informed the men of Yabesh, and they rejoiced. So the men of Yabesh said, "Tomorrow we come out to you, and you shall do whatever seems good to you." And it came to be on the next day that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch, and struck Ammon until the heat of the day. And it came to be that those left were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. And the people said to Samuel, who said, "Shall Saul reign over us? Bring the men so that we put them to death." But Saul said, "No man is put to death this day, for today Yahweh has wrought deliverance in Israel." And Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the reign there." And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they set up Saul to reign before Yahweh in Gilgal. And there they slaughtered slaughterings and peace offerings before Yahweh, and there Saul rejoiced, and all the men of Israel, very greatly. Chapter 12. And Samuel said to all Israel, "Look, I have listened to your voice and all that you have said to me, and have set a sovereign over you. And now look, the sovereign is walking before you, and I am old and gray. And look, my sons are with you, and I have walked before you from my youth to this day. Look, here I am. Witness against me before Yahweh and before his anointed, whose ox I have taken, and whose donkey have I taken, or whom have I oppressed? Whom have I abused, or from whose hand have I received any bribe with which you blind my eyes? Then I restore it to you." And they said, "You have not oppressed us or abused us, nor have you taken any bribe from anyone's hand." So he said to them, "Yahweh is witness against you, and his anointed is witness today, that you have found naught in my hand." And they answered, "He is witness." And Samuel said to the people, It is Yahweh who anointed Moshe and Aaron, and who brought your fathers up from the land of Mitzrayim. And now stand still so that I judge you before the concerning of all the righteous acts of Yahweh which he did to you and your fathers. When Jacob had come to Mitzrayim and your fathers cried out to Yahweh, then Yahweh sent Moshe and Aaron, who brought your fathers out of Mitzrayim and made them dwell in this place. But they forgot Yahweh their Elohim, so he sold them into the hand of Sisera, commander of the army of Hatzor, and into the hand of the Philistine, and into the hand of the sovereign of Moab, and they fought against them. And they cried out to Yahweh, and he said, We have sinned, because we have forsaken Yahweh and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. And now deliver us from the hand of our enemies, and we serve you. And Yahweh sent Jerubbaal and Badan and Yiftah and Samuel, and delivered you out of the hand of your enemies round about, and you dwelt in safety. And when you saw that Nahash, sovereign of the children of Ammon, came against you, you said to me, No, but let the sovereign reign over us, when Yahweh your Elohim was your sovereign. And now here is the sovereign whom you have chosen, and whom you have asked, and see, Yahweh has set a sovereign over you. If you fear Yahweh, and shall serve him, and obey his voice, and not rebel against the command of Yahweh, then both you and the sovereign who reigns over you shall follow Yahweh your Elohim. But if you do not obey the voice of Yahweh, and shall rebel against the mouth of Yahweh, then the hand of Yahweh shall be against you, as it was against your fathers. And now stand and see this great matter which Yahweh does before your eyes. Is today not the wheat harvest? Let me call to Yahweh, so that he sends thunder and rain. Know then that your evil is great, which you have done in the eyes of Yahweh, in asking for yourselves a sovereign. And Samuel called to Yahweh, and Yahweh sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared Yahweh and Samuel. And all the people said to Samuel, Pray for your servants to Yahweh, for your Elohim, that we do not die. Notice he said, Pray to Yahweh, your Elohim, not our Elohim. That we do not die, for we have added to all our sin against this evil of asking for ourselves a sovereign. And Samuel said to the people, Do not fear. You have done all this evil. Only do not turn aside from following Yahweh, and you shall serve Yahweh with all your heart. And do not turn aside after worthless matters, which do not profit or deliver, for they are worthless. For Yahweh would not cast away his people for his great name's sake, seeing it has pleased Yahweh to make you his people. Also, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against Yahweh in ceasing to pray for you. But I shall teach you the good and straight way. Only fear Yahweh, and you shall serve him in truth with all your heart. For consider what marvels he has done for you. But if you persist in doing evil, both you and your sovereign are consumed. Chapter 13. Saul was years old. It just says ... Saul was years old when he began to reign. When he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel, and 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash, and in the mountains of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. And the rest of the people he sent away, each to his tent, and Jonathan struck the watchpost of the Philistines that was in Gibeah. And the Philistines heard of it, and Saul blew the shofar throughout all the land, saying, Let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard the news that Saul had stricken a watchpost of the Philistines, and also that Israel had become a stench to the Philistines, and the people were summoned to Saul at Gilgal. And the Philistines gathered to fight Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as numerous as the sands of the seashore. And they came up and encamped in Michmash, east of Beth Aven. And men of Israel saw that they were in trouble, for the people were distressed, and the people hid in caves, and in thorny bushes, and in rocks, and in the holes, and in pits. And some Hebrews passed over the Jordan in the land of Gad and Gilead, but Saul was still in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And he waited for 7 days according to the appointment with Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, "Bring an ascending offering and peace offerings here to me." And he offered the ascending offering. And it came to be that as he had finished the ascending offering, look, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, to bless him. And Samuel said, "What have you done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that you did not come within the days appointed, that the Philistines gathered at Michmash. So I said, the Philistines are going to come down on me at Gilgal. And I have not appeased the face of Yahweh, so I felt compelled and offered an ascending offering." And Samuel said to Saul, "You have been foolish. You have not guarded the command of Yahweh your Elohim, which he commanded you, for now Yahweh would have established your reign over Israel forever. But now your reign is not going to stand. Yahweh shall seek for himself a man after his own heart, and Yahweh shall command him to be leader over his people, because you have not guarded what Yahweh commanded you." And Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin. Quick note here, we're in verse 15. Notice that every single time something like this happens, Samuel even said in verse 13, "For Yahweh would have established your reign over Israel forever." He would have established it forever. But he worshipped in the manner that was not prescribed. You got to think, what made David a man after the Father's heart? It's the way he worshipped. Worship's important. It's incredibly important. Do not worship me the way the heathen do, right? There's so many different ways and manners in which they worship, but also you take a look here, the thing that he did was not for him to do. He could have sat there and worshiped the Father, but the ascending offering was not for him to give. Food for thought, Even though Saul's intent was to please the Father, one could say that his intent was, I gotta check this box so that the Father would be with me so I can win this war, right? It's kind of hard to say, but still the point rings true that it came down to worship. And the Father, rather than establishing his reign forever, cut him off. Food for thought. I want you to think about worship. Let's see. Verse 15, and Samuel rose and went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul mustered the people who were present with him, about 600 men, and Saul and Jonathan his son and the people who were present with them remained in Gibeah of Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. And from the camp of the Philistines raiders went out in 3 companies, and 1 company turned away that leads to Ophrah, to the land of Saul. And another company turned toward the way of Beth Horon, and another company turned toward the way of the border that overlooks the valley of Seboim, toward the wilderness. Now no blacksmith could be found in all the land of Israel, and the Philistines said, "Lest the Hebrews make swords or spears." And all Israel went down to the Philistines, each one to sharpen his plowshare and his mattock and his axe and his sickle. And the charge was a pim for the plowshares and the mattocks and the forks and the axes, and to set the points of the goads. And it came to be on the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people who were with Saul and Jonathan, but they were found with Saul and Jonathan his son. And the outposts of the Philistines went out to the pass of Michmash. Chapter 14. And it came to be one day, that Jonathan, son of Saul, said to the young men who bore his armor, "Come and let us go over to the outpost of the Philistines, which is on the other side." But he did not inform his father. And Saul remained on the outskirts of Geba under the pomegranate tree at Migron, and the people who were with him were about 600 men. And Ahiah, son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of Yahweh in Shiloh, was wearing a shoulder garment, and the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. And between the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the outpost of the Philistines, there was an edge of a rock on one side and the edge of a rock on the other side. And the name of one was Botzets, and the name of the other was Seneh. The one edge was on the north, opposite Michmash, and the other on the south, opposite Geba. And Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, "Come, let us go over to the outpost of these uncircumcised. If so be Yahweh does work for us, for there is no hindrance for Yahweh to save by many or by few." And his armor-bearer said to him, "Do all that is in your heart. Incline yourself, and see, I am with you, according to your heart." And Jonathan said, "See, we are passing over to the men, and show ourselves to them. If they say this to us, 'Wait until we come to you,' then we shall stand still in our place and not go up to them. But if they say this, 'Come to us,' then we shall go up, for Yahweh has given them into our hand. And this is the sign to us." And both of them disclosed themselves to the outpost of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, "See, the Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden." And the men of the outpost called to Jonathan and his armor-bearer and said, "Come up to us, and let us teach you a lesson." Then Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Come up after me, for Yahweh has given them into the hand of Israel." And Jonathan climbed up on his hands, so by his faith. One can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight. Thoughts here. Then Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Come up after me, for Yahweh has given them into the hand of Israel." And Jonathan climbed up on his hands and knees with his armor-bearer after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer was putting them to death behind him. And that first smiting which Jonathan and his armor-bearer struck was about 20 men and about half an acre of land. There was trembling in the camp. That's a lot of guys on half an acre, man. And there was trembling in the camp and in the field, and among all the people, the outpost and the raiders also trembled. And the ground shook, and it came And it became a trembling of Elohim. And the watchmen of Saul in Geba of Benjamin looked and saw the crowd melting away, and they went here and there. And Saul said to the people who were with him, Please inspect and see who has gone from us. And they inspected and saw that Jonathan and his armor-bearer were missing. And Saul said to Ahiah, Bring the ark of Elohim here, for the ark of Elohim was with the children of Israel on that day. And it came to be, while Saul talked to the priest, that the noise which was in the camp of the Philistines went on and became great. So Saul said to the priest, Withdraw your hand. And Saul was called, and all the people who were with him, and they went to battle. And see, every man's sword was against his neighbor, and a very great confusion. And the Hebrews who were with the Philistines before that time, who went up with them into the camp, turned around, they too, to be with Israel, who were with Saul and Jonathan. And all the men of Israel who had hidden in the mountains of Ephraim heard that the Philistines fled, and they also pursued them in battle. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over Beth Awen. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had placed the people under oath, saying, Cursed be the man who eats food until evening. And I am avenged on my enemies, therefore none of the people taste food. And all they of the land came into the woods, and there was honey on the ground. And the people came into the woods and saw honey dripping, but no one put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan had not heard that his father had taken an oath of the people, and he stretched out the end of his rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in honeycomb, and put it in his mouth, and his eyes lit up. Then one of the people said, Your father strictly took an oath of the people, saying, Cursed be the man who eats food today. And the people were weary. And Jonathan said, My father has troubled the land. Now see, my eyes lit up when I tasted a little of this honey. How much better of the people had well eaten today of the spoil of the enemies which they found. For then would not the slaughter among the Philistines have been greater? And they struck the Philistines that day from Michmash to Aijalon. So the people were very weary, and the people pounced on the spoil, and took sheep and cattle and calves, and slew them on the ground, and the people ate with the blood. And they told Saul, saying, Look, the people are sinning against Yahweh by eating with the blood. And he said, You have acted treacherously. Roll a large stone to me today. And Saul said, Scatter among the people, and say to them, Each one bring his oxen here to me, and each one his sheep, and you shall slay them here, and eat, and do not sin against Yahweh by eating with the blood. So every one of the people brought his ox with him that night, and slew it there. And Saul built a slaughter place to Yahweh, and it was the first slaughter place he built to Yahweh. And Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night, and plunder them until the morning light, and not leave a man of them. And they said, Do whatever seems good to you. But the priest said, Let us draw near to Elohim here. And Saul asked of Elohim, Should I go down after the Philistines? Do you give them into the hand of Israel? But he did not answer him that day. And Saul said, Come over here, all you chiefs of the people, and know and see what this sin was today. For as Yahweh lives, who saves Israel through it, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall certainly die. But not one among all the people answered him. And he said to all Israel, You be on one side, and my son Jonathan and I be on the other side. And the people said to Saul, Do what seems good to you. Then Saul said to Yahweh Elohim of Israel, give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, cast lots between my son Jonathan and me. And Jonathan was taken. Saul then said to Jonathan, explain to me what you have done. And Jonathan explained to him and said, I only tasted a little honey with the end of the rod that was in my hand. See, let me die. And Saul answered, Elohim do so and more also, for you shall certainly die, Jonathan. But the people said to Saul, should Jonathan die, who has wrought this great salvation in Israel? Far be it, as Yahweh lives, let not one hair of his head fall on the ground, for he is wrought with Elohim this day. Thus the people ransomed Jonathan, and he did not die. And Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. And Saul took the reign over Israel and fought against all his enemies round about, against the city of Moab, and against the children of Ammon, and against Edom, and against the sovereigns of Sobah, and against the Philistines. And wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment. And he gathered an army and struck the Amalekites, and delivered Israel from the hands of those who plundered them. And the sons of Saul were Jonathan, and Yishwi, and Malchishua. And the names of his two daughters were these: the name of the firstborn, Merab, and the name of the younger, Michal. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, and the daughter of Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. And the name of the commander of his army was Abner, son of Ner, uncle of Saul. And Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. And there was tough fighting against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any mighty man or any brave man, he took him for himself. All right, that was a long reading. Anyways, tomorrow we pick up in 1 Samuel chapter 15. Shalom.